Here you have the Quran also making many claims.
Yeah, well, there's lots of things I've read in the Quran aren't correct.
All of them are right.
They're not.
Okay, like what, for example?
The earth isn't a rug. The mountains aren't pegs.
Come on, this is silly.
I mean,
really.
the embryology in there is spurious. The fact that salt and, when you get this sort of barrier between salt water and river water, whatever, yeah, you can see that.
Physically demonstrable.
You can see that. If I got a jug of salt water, seawater and river water, and they'd mix. You just pour them in a bucket,
That's not
they
what
mix.
the Quran is saying.
Yeah, but these are miracles. Okay, I'm a nowist.
Yeah, so this is... I mean, if you're going to be ridiculous about it, that's fine.
Can you hear yourself?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
So this is why I say you've made up something called a nowist.
I made up something.
And yet now you're telling
Well, all
me...
I know is that this is what is.
It's the final revelation,
Yes.
which we can demonstrate to be preserved, which we
Yes.
can demonstrate could not have been the work of a man in the 7th century.
Why?
Lots of mistakes.
Of course, that's life.
Right, that's life, right? So if we can connect to a guidance that is not purely based upon subjective, social consensus that alters and changes over time, and make all those mistakes along the way, and if we have some pure guidance that can perhaps save us from those...
Well, that's the Quran, right?
Right, of course. For us, it's Islam, it's the Quran, right?
I mean, for some people, it's the New Testament, right?
Yes.
For other people, it's other books.
Absolutely. No, but what I'm trying to say to you, but from my perspective, but from my perspective as a Muslim, if I feel that there is a way of life that protects me from all of those things, from alcohol, from interest, from gambling, from drugs, from sexual immorality, okay, it saves me from marriage breakup potentially, it saves me from all of those complications in life, then it makes sense for me to follow that teaching, right?
If it works for you, yeah.
Yeah.
Can we not use our common sense and experience as
Well,
well? Is not the Quran just a writing down of things that people have known for thousands of years?
Well, we believe
There's
that...
nothing new in it, is it? It certainly doesn't jump out of nowhere and tell everyone, give the earth morality. I mean, you've got Exodus, it's got endless dictates in there. Sermon on the Mount, you've got the Buddhist Dharma, it's exactly the same, there's no difference there. So it's just, for me, it's not... Okay, maybe there is a divine dimension. Okay, I'm not denying that. That's not in question here. But humans learn from experience. We're clever. You know, we don't always need divine intervention to understand the world. We use our brains and we use observation. Children understand. So if I poke you, it feels, I've got a child would develop empathy when someone pokes back. We learn from experience. We can understand compassion and empathy.
So there's two things there. Number one, I don't disagree with you about the similarity of many moral codes that are found throughout history.
It's human experience.
But that's not the human experience. That actually, no, you just said it all has some sort of a divine connection.
No, I didn't say that. I said I'm not denying there's a divine experience in this. But
so what
I'm saying we don't always need the divine.
What I would argue with you is that we in Islam we believe that all of the people of this world throughout history, human history, have received messengers from God.
I know this.
So they would have received guidance.
I hear that they've lost the message.
No, that's not my point.
All right, go on.
My point is that where we find moral consistency of being good, kind, not killing, not stealing, not raping. Yeah, but I would argue that from an Islamic point of view, that all of these teachings have permeated throughout history through divine revelation or divine people being sent, divine command being sent down to the people, right? As guidance.
So I need an angel to tell me not to... Let me get the second point. I need an angel to stop me putting my hand in the fire.
Well, let me say the second point. The second point is that you said we can logically think about these things.
Well, we have experience. If I put my hand in the fire,
much of our experience actually comes from religious teachings.
Well, okay, let's go back to the hand in the fire. I put my hand in the fire. Yes. I don't need God to tell me not to do that. I know. I put the hand in the fire. I know not to do it.
Imran, assalamu alaikum. How you doing? You all right? You got down? How you doing? You all right? Brother, what it is that...
No, but you understand the point.
Of course.
But that's all it is.
No, but we believe that there are some intrinsic truths that we all recognize. So for example, if I was to punch you in your tummy, you would experience pain, regardless of whether you believe in a God or you don't believe in a God. So there are some intrinsic realities that we all experience. Now, there are some other things that potentially are, let's say, debatable or we can discuss. For example, to invade another country and to steal their resources because it's good for my people. That can be a very subjective discussion or argument. Especially if you leave God out of the picture. Because then you could say, well, we are all a product of a primordial soup. Atoms simply coming together and assembling themselves in a particular way. And my people, my culture, I feel, subjectively, that are superior to every other culture, every other person. So if I come into your land because I'm stronger, just like the lion tears the wildebeest to shreds, I'm going to come into your territory, steal your resources, and I'm going to kill all of your people. Now, how would you, without God being in the picture, say somehow intrinsically, as a matter of fact, that that's an immoral action?
Okay, well, a lot of these places, they worked out it wasn't a good idea to do that, and they worked out some kind of reciprocal arrangement with these places.
No, but how would you argue?
But they did. No, I'm saying that doesn't always happen. Often it's not like that. There'll be a reciprocal arrangement. It's not good to go and then kill everyone. We'll get. There's a two-way street, perhaps. So,
but how would you establish that as a matter of fact?
Well, you see it in history.
No, that's not matter of fact. That's an opinion, right?
What do you mean? This is very.
How would you say to that person, "Don't do that"? That's an immoral action. How would you be able to establish that?
Perfect morality, I don't think it really exists. Everyone's often looking for something they can get for themselves. I understand that. But there is a level of compassion inherent within a human being that can be tapped into.
No, I agree.
Whether that's divine or not.
I agree. Compassion and having non-compassion is something that we can establish.
A mother doesn't need the divine to know how to love its child.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
It's inherent.
I totally agree. But if she decides not to feed that child and that child dies.
Well, that's an unusual scenario. It does happen.
I totally agree.
It does happen.
How would you establish from a matter of fact that what you've done is completely immoral?
Well, you can just say whatever you want. You can say it comes from a book that was given to a man in a cave in the Middle East, 7th century, or you can say you heard it from your father. It's of no concern. It's just you either have the idea in your head or you don't.
Okay.
Its source is debatable as to whether its authenticity or where its origin is from. People knew these things before the Quran, so it's obviously it's a universal. These Carl Jung calls them archetypes. These ideas, these principles. They're inherent. They're unavoidable archetypes. Now you could say that's attributed to Allah. That's fine if you want to say that. Allah just means God, right?
Yes.
So it's this sort of nebulous idea of some being beyond us that's created the universe separate from its creation. That's okay.
You see, what we would argue is this. That from a purely materialistic reality, it's impossible to argue with a definite that this particular action or that particular action is immoral or moral. Because I'll tell you why.
Why do I know morality?
But please, let me just, if I could just finish my point, yeah? No, that's a different argument.
Right,
and we can make that, we can have that argument, we can have that discussion. The reason why it's difficult, or if not impossible, is because a purely material existence is purely is saying that you are assembled with atoms in a different way from this brother or from me or from a gazelle or from an antelope or whatever. There's no meaning beyond that. And whatever meaning beyond that you attribute is again simply arbitrary.
Well, it's various. We have different gods and different cultures.
No, that's a different argument, right?
No, it's not.
Now, what I'm saying to you is from our paradigm, I could turn around and tell you to go and kill an innocent person and steal his resources is haram, forbidden. It's immoral. Now, I can't tell you it's immoral from a purely materialistic standpoint. The only way I can come to that conclusion is that Allah has made it immoral. So for me, that yardstick of certainty to measure everything by comes from the Creator.
I hear that.
But when I use my own yardstick, I could argue that it's perfectly moral. Just like Dick Cheney, after the Iraq War, when he was asked, why did you invade Iraq and kill nearly a million people?
Let me answer
no, he said it was in our benefit.
I'm going to get lost. You're saying that people can't generate or experience philosophical, moral principles without the idea of God.
No, I didn't say that.
But that's what you're implying.
No, we believe that
that's
Allah.
What you're implying,
no.
Because if you said that to me, and we were in Greece, and you had the Stoics and all the different philosophers and so on, and they thought about, and am I not allowed to listen to them and go, and through empathy?
I'm going to just go and pray now.
Through empathy and compassion, understand that.
Yeah.
I can understand that.
So
without,
Dr. Imran.
No, wait.
Yeah.
I can understand that without God.
Can you though?
Yes. I can.
Okay, so you're saying you've evolved your morality, right?
It's happened. I just said
you can't.
You can. So I'm not a Muslim. But I know it's wrong to rape. I know it's wrong to rape. I don't have to be a Muslim to know that's wrong.
You're arguing a side point.
No.
What the question here is about the basis of your morality. Where do you get your morality from? Now, if you're saying, look, we can.
I know the argument.
All of your statements so far with the brother. You're talking about a nebulous idea of God. There's no nebulous idea. It's very clear.
Can you guys excuse me? I'm just going to go and pray. Is that okay?
You're talking about, I can just sit there and think about it.
Well, I'm a fully complete. The whole system's here.
How do you know that?
Well, I'm able to understand it's not a good idea to rape.
How do you know that?
Because I know.
I
know. I've never read the. I have read some of the Quran. I've never read the Quran. I've never read the Quran, right? So therefore, I don't understand it's not right to rape someone. Is that what you're saying?
So don't give these emotional,
but that's not what I'm saying. That's not nonsensical. So that's what your whole argument is.
So you're
not listening. This is dogmatic. You're not listening.
So you're telling me that I'm not listening whilst not letting me talk.
You're implying that because I'm not a Muslim, I don't know that it's wrong to rape.
I'm not saying
is my moral judgment? Wait. Let me just say this before I forget. You're saying my moral judgment not to go and rape is invalid.
We're not saying that.
Okay, so
what's your name? Alex.
So is my morality... One question. This is all I want to know. Is my morality valid?
Just one question.
That's it. And then I won't say any more. Is my morality valid?
Alex, just 1 second.
Is my morality valid?
To
not go out and hurt someone? Is it yes or no?
It's not a yes or no answer.
Well, it's obviously no, because you can't answer.
No, this is the problem here.
But you're saying my morality is invalid because it's not from God.
Alex,
come on.
Alex, listen. Let's have a conversation.
I am having a conversation.
No, you're not.
But you don't answer my questions.
No, we are. We're trying to.
What you're doing is you're giving these primary school level
questions for you.
But you're not allowed to answer.
Well, I'm not hearing anything. All I hear is
so you want. This is. What was your name?
Alex. Imran Abbas.
What?
I want to go and pray, but let's have a conversation.
We are, but you're not answering my
No, but hold on a second, Alex. The questions that you ask, you may feel should be answered in a yes or no.
Yeah.
And not all questions can be answered in a yes or no.
Okay, I hear that.
So let him answer the question.
But one thing quickly, you're asking me where do I get my morality from,
What's
implying
your
that
morality?
Okay, and my experience of morality it's something that I just know. It's inherent. I know.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
Right. So now.
All right. Enjoy.
That's the first level of your answer.
Yeah.
I just know this.
A mother knows how to love her child, doesn't she?
She does.
She doesn't need the Quran.
She just knows it. So
does she need the Quran to know how to love her child?
So these are the emotive sort of type of questions.
No, these are not emotional. This is just a fact. A lot of women have children, but they don't need a holy book to know how to, or a father to know how to.
Do you think that the people? Do you think that we're saying? Do you think as a Muslim, I'm saying to you that the reason the mother loves a child is because it's written in the book?
No, I'm saying that things are inherent.
So, Alex, so hear what you're saying. No one is making the argument to you that the reason we do things is because it's written in the book. That is not the argument. And if you're
what's the book then?
This is the whole thing you've come with is
I'm ready.
in your book, and that's why you do it.
Okay.
That doesn't make sense.
That's what I was hearing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so explain to me then.
That as a fundamental basis for a discussion, you're talking about something else.
Okay, go on.
We're talking about where does your morality come from. Now you revert to a book straight away. That's not where we're talking about.
You don't get your morality from the Quran, no?
No, we don't get it from a book.
Okay.
So the question here is, the morality has to have a basis. And I'll give you an example. You're an atheist, agnostic, or
I don't want to say. I'd rather not. Just keep it.
This is a discussion, isn't it? If I'm talking to another theist, if I'm talking to a theist, then there's a different discussion.
Does it matter? Does it matter? Can't we just be human? I'm human.
You're human. Great.
I'm a human being. That's good. Then we got it even.
That doesn't tell us anything about in terms of where our positions are.
It does. We have this. Okay, I'm a nowist.
Yeah. So this is. I mean, if you're going to be ridiculous about it, that's
can you hear yourself?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
So this is why I say you've made up something called a nowist.
I made up something.
And now you're telling me.
Well, all I know is that this is what is. Okay, so this is my belief. This is my belief is what exists is now.
Yeah, so
there's nothing outside of this moment.
There is nothing outside of this moment.
No. There's no future and there's no past. It's the eternal present. Okay. So I'm a nowist.
Okay, so whatever goes now is fine, yeah?
No, it's just what is. You'll only ever know now.
Okay, so whatever goes now is fine, right?
It can be fine or it can be painful. It can be pleasurable or painful.
So then in that now moment, what's the point? What more judgment?
Okay, well, in that the now moment expresses itself through duality.
No.
Pleasure. I'm trying to explain my faith. Pleasure, pain, heaven, hell, up, down, dog, cat.
There's no now.
Well, okay, the principles of heaven. Okay, pleasure, pain. Then, if that's preferable to you.
You said it.
Yeah, whatever works.
So you're talking about the now, isn't it?
Yeah, everything's here. Yeah.
Now.
Okay, let's say there is a heaven or hell, right? Let's say no. Let me. Okay, I'm trying to.
Give your position as a now, and then talk about.
You won't let me talk about my belief. If let's say there is a heaven and a hell, it's now. It's not in the future or the past.
Where is it?
Exactly. It's hidden. It's hidden behind veils. It's hidden behind veils.
That's like the past and the future.
Yeah, there's no past and future.
It doesn't exist. Okay.
That's one thing I can be sure of.
Okay.
Because I'm a nowist, I'm pretty dogmatic.
Great. That's great. So this is what I'm. This is what I mean by.
The only one talking.
This is what I mean. This is what I mean by the ridiculousness of the positions you take. So where did this come from? I started.
I'm ridiculous.
No, the position. You're not. You're a human being.
Okay, I'm not ridiculous.
I'm sure you're a great, wonderful person, Alex.
That's very sweet.
The point here is I'm talking about. So you're taking everything very personally. I'm talking about the positions you're taking.
All I can do is take things personally. That's all you can do in life.
No, I'm not.
Of course you are.
I haven't taken anything that you said personally.
You have. You got a bit wound up there.
Not at all.
Okay.
I'm trying to get you to focus on the actual question.
You want me to be a Muslim? I know. I don't want you to be anything. Just be yourself.
No, I don't. It's up to you.
It's not though, is it?
It is up to you.
It's not. Because if I don't become a Muslim, I'll burn in hell.
No, but it's up to you.
That's the cudgel you have behind your back. You say, oh no, it's okay.
This is another emotive argument. This is like, I won't...
what's wrong with emotion? Emotion's part of the human condition.
Why don't you go through red lights when you're driving?
Why don't I go through red lights? Because I don't want to get a fine? I don't want to crash into someone? I don't know. Yeah.
So you're going to say that's the cudgel they use, the axe that they use to sort of make me do these things, otherwise I wouldn't be doing them?
Some of life is like that, yeah. Okay. Some of life is not so clear and cut. Life is complex, isn't it? There's many things going on.
So let's have a complex discussion. Yeah?
Okay, well, let's see if you can, yeah.
Let's see, there we go.
See, there we go.
There we go. So this all started from me just simply asking you what position did you take.
And I said nowist, and you laughed at me. You said I was ridiculous.
And then you made up this position.
What do you
just to not have a discussion. No. So we spent 10 minutes talking about.
I'm not a theist. I'm not an atheist.
Okay.
And I'm not a Muslim. I'm not a Christian. I'm a nowist. What's wrong with that?
So in my view, that if you're not a theist, and you're going to bring any moral. Anything that you regard as
okay. Now we get
anything
to
that you regard. Yeah, I was trying to do that 10 minutes ago. But you made up this nowist issue.
I made up this now, like Muhammad made up Islam.
No, you didn't make it up.
Oh, you see that? What's the difference?
So this is the discussion.
How do you know I didn't see an angel earlier, and then he came to me and told me about nowism?
Did you see an angel earlier on?
I didn't. No.
Okay. Have you got any evidence for that?
No.
Okay. So now we're talking about chalk and cheese. You want to ask about
all the religions start with some experience out in the desert or in a cave.
Do they?
Yeah, they do. Buddha was sitting out in the wilderness, wasn't he? He had his enlightenment. Muhammad was in the cave. Moses went up the mountain. Lao Tzu went out somewhere. Everyone, Christ was in the desert.
And then what did they establish? So let's take the Prophet Muhammad. What did he?
I don't know. They came back with a religion, didn't they? That millions of people followed. I don't know.
What?
Anyway, let's get back to your point.
No, this is the dismissal, and this is the position. This is the arrogant position that people take of dismissing.
Don't get emotional.
I'm not emotional. Saying the word arrogant doesn't make me emotional.
You are a bit.
The people who get emotional are the ones who.
I don't mind being emotional. It's quite normal to be an emotional human being.
It's good to be.
It's all right to be. You should try it, man.
But I think the point here is this: look, you bringing up that came from the desert or the cave or whatever.
Well, they went into.
Okay,
It's
fine.
always holy
Okay,
men.
okay,
Always.
okay. Does that inherently make it true or false?
Depends what you believe in.
No,
if
no.
you believe in the Quran, it's true, but you don't believe in Jesus.
No.
or
The
whatever.
fact that where it came from or how it came from, does that inherently somehow logically make it true or false?
I don't know. Einstein came up with E equals MC squared without God, and it seems to work quite well,
No, but
right?
your position of it came from a cave or it came from a desert or whatever.
All I'm
does
saying
that
is
inherently look. You're not answering my question. Does that inherently?
You don't
make
answer my question.
I'll answer your question, but answer this one first. Does it inherently make it true or false as to how it came or where it came from?
Nobody knows.
Okay, so if you don't know, then it's irrelevant to our topic.
I don't know if Muhammad saw an angel in the cave or not.
Okay.
I wasn't there.
You don't know.
You don't know either. You weren't there.
Doesn't make it inherently true or false. That's the point. Right. So let's have a meaningful discussion.
Look, I think it's hard to have a meaningful
discussion. No, because I'm a difficult customer. Enjoy the challenge.
Let's have a meaningful discussion.
Enjoy the challenge.
Let's have a meaningful discussion.
Alex is really amusing.
Am I giving you? Is this difficult for you? Am I difficult?
You're not.
No.
Well, look, come on. Sometimes you have to have a challenge. You know,
facetious,
Alex, you know what I mean?
immediate,
for a conversation,
maybe, but not
Alex, for a
difficult.
conversation to be meaningful, we have to engage. And to engage, it means that you hear what the other person says and you respond to what they say.
I've tried.
And vice versa.
Okay, let's go from
if
now.
we constantly interject and just keep throwing things in that are irrelevant to the conversation,
I don't think that happened.
Well, if you say to me, it all came from a desert and a cave.
No,
and
I said holy men, traditionally, most revelations come from...
Right, but what's that got to do with what we're talking about? And how does it change?
You have to go back to the conversation. I
How
can't
does
remember.
it change?
We've gone on all kinds of different...
but how does it change the reality of whether it's true or not? That's what I'm trying to say to you.
I don't know if Muhammad's experience was true. I wasn't there.
But regardless of your believing or not believing it, doesn't change whether it happened or it didn't happen.
I don't know if it did. I don't know. It might have. It might have happened.
I'm not saying that it did or it didn't as a consequence. I'm saying you not knowing that whether it did or didn't happen does not change the reality or whether it did or it didn't happen.
I know that.
Okay, so it's irrelevant to our conversation. Okay. Because we're trying to hopefully get to truth.
Okay, go on.
So the point that Brother Imran is trying to make to you is, unless you have an objective yardstick to measure morality by, it becomes purely fluid, subjective, often nurture and nature, nurture perhaps being more of an overriding force in establishing what is moral or immoral. Would you agree to that?
You have to have something objective.
To be certain of any position.
Okay, so what would that be? What would that be then?
No, regardless of what that would be, I'm just saying, can you arrive from a purely materialistic basis,
okay, so
a reality of objective truth when it comes to morality?
All I know is that I know what I have a morality. It may not be the same as yours.
No, that's fine. That's a different thing altogether. Can we arrive at an objective truth when it comes to morality?
We can have a general consensus, but there's always going to be room for movement.
Consensus.
There's going to be room for movement.
So I agree with you.
Yeah.
That we can have a consensus of what people generally feel to be moral or immoral.
Well, yes.
And that will change over time, depending upon our nurture and our nature.
No, generally, I would say that the principles stay the same mainly.
Fundamentals like murder, rape.
We know that's not good, right?
Right, of course. So, but there are many other things that are open to, let's say, grey areas when it comes to subjectivity.
Because of new discoveries, different cultures. Yeah, of course, that's life. It's complex,
fine.
as I say.
So let me ask you a question now.
Yeah.
If a consensus in a particular country was actually raping of women is acceptable.
Well, you'd fight against that.
No.
I would.
But I'm just saying, from your paradigm, how would you argue or establish that is wrong, immoral? That is immoral.
Because I inherently know that they are suffering.
So a feeling.
Yeah.
Of knowing. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And they tell you, but your feeling is wrong. Our feeling is right. We're the majority. We think it's perfectly okay to do this. Because they'll say, look, dolphins do it. Other animals do it. So if you're an animal, from a purely materialistic sense of point of view, you should do it too.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't do it. And
no, I'm not saying you would, because you inherently believe it's wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm saying from a purely philosophical, intellectual position, to arrive at a conclusion where you can say 100% you are all wrong.
Yes.
And I am 100%
Well, I would
right.
just go with that because I know I would have a mother. I would understand.
I understand.
I understand. I have sisters. I would understand. I have empathy. I have compassion.
Yes.
If I'm not psychopathic,
Yes.
then I would understand that. It's inherent.
But so basically what you're now saying is that from your subjective reasoning
Yes.
and your feelings,
That's all we can have. Yeah.
and your feelings,
Yes.
you would perhaps still say that was wrong.
Yes.
But you wouldn't be able to tell them inherently that they were wrong because they got their social
Well,
consensus.
I could tell them all they want. We'd end up in a fight. That would be life.
However, from a stance of being able to convince them out of certainty that this is wrong, you wouldn't have that.
Well, I'd speak to their reason and ask them, do you have mothers? Do you have sisters? Do you know how it feels to... Do you understand how it feels to be persecuted or to feel pain?
They say we know all that. We know all that, but we think this is right.
Well, then they'd either kill me or I'd kill them.
Right. Now for us, alhamdulillah, we have something that we can give to them, take to them, say to them, even if the whole world was to argue that rape is acceptable, we would say 100% it's haram, it's forbidden,
I
it's
could do
wrong,
that too.
and it's wrong. But we would say, not because we feel it, because we do feel it, but we would say because the one that created everything, created you, has made this haram and forbidden and immoral. So do you see the difference here?
Well, anyone can make up anything about a God coming down and tell you. I could put those feelings into words and say it came from God.
Totally agree.
And I could be misled. I could really believe that.
I totally agree.
I could believe this is divine.
Yes, but if I establish through evidence to myself that it is divine, then would you agree that now I have something that, at least from my subjective view of it, through investigation, through analysing the evidence, that I can now argue that I have something objective rather than my own feelings?
I don't think it... Okay, I hear that. It's all about the objectivity for you, is it? Not even what necessarily the words in the book. Because I could come up with a book that would say the same thing. Sermon on the Mount, some of the laws in Exodus are very similar.
Yes.
Proving it's divine. I mean, back then, the written word was, for the elite, for the priesthood, for the divine. So most people will be aghast at that, the fact that you can read.
Not for Muslims, by the way. That's a very Christian thing. But
no, but reading back then, well, I mean, sure, not many people read, did they?
No, but in Islam, we have a rich tradition. Allah says in the Quran that the one who is learned is not equal to the one who's not learned. The one who's literate and learned is not equal to the one who's illiterate and unlearned. So one of the things, for example...
That's not very moral, is it?
So one of the things, for example, if you had a battle and you captured people, one of the ways that he could get released, get his freedom, is if he taught 10 people how to read. So this was something established very early on in Islam.
I don't doubt Islam was very progressive for its time and had some great ideas. That's not in question.
I'm just saying this concept of not making people literate was not an Islamic concept.
Okay, but
it was a Christian concept.
But people can write. There's lots of texts, religious texts, Gnostic texts. The Gnostic texts, there's loads of them.
No, but what we would agree with you upon is that there are good teachings that permeate through society throughout history.
Yes.
But we would argue, because Allah says that we never punish a people until we send them a warner. We believe that they all received messengers and teachings about morality.
Yeah.
And we believe that morality, those teachings, have indeed permeated through society. But what we say is that the ultimate reality for us as Muslims is the final revelation,
yes,
which we can demonstrate to be preserved, which we can demonstrate could not have been the work of a man in the 7th century.
Why?
Because when we look at the Quran and its the very concepts of the Quran, the Quran claims to be a miracle.
Yeah.
And when we look at what those miracles might be, we very soon establish for ourselves that there is no explanation other than it coming from the divine.
Like what?
So, for example, prophecies.
Yeah.
So in Surah Rome,
about the Romans being defeated.
The Romans being defeated, okay? What we would argue is that this is something that was counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Because the Romans are on their last legs. The Persians are the dominant force. The Persians could have simply gone back and defeated the Romans and wiped them off, and that would have been the end. Eventually, the downfall of the two empires comes from the Muslims. So the Muslims defeat both the Persians and the Romans. Now, had that happened earlier, or the Romans attacked the Muslims first, or the Romans could have been defeated by the Muslims, not by the Persians.
I mean, is it that impressive?
So what I would argue...
Lots of people make predictions.
Of course they do, but many of them come wrong.
Of course. But you're always going to get one that's right. We'll put that in the book. I mean...
But the point here is this. Whatever predictions the Quran has made have come true.
Like
whatever
what? That one,
for example.
There's many events
or being defeated in the lowest lands.
Yeah.
And the lowest lands, when we find out where the battle took place, is the lowest part of the earth. Okay? So the Quran makes not only predictions in terms of how it will be happen, but where it will happen, and it gives us something significant. And that part of the earth is the lowest part of the earth on the on the global, on our planet, basically, right? There are many other things, for example, like the Arabic language itself of the Quran. Allah says, if you are truthful, come up with a Quran like it. Then the challenge.
I've read lots of texts are just as interesting.
In English?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the Quran is in Arabic. The Quran is not in English.
But it should be able to be translated.
Yeah, but
is it not translatable?
If you translate a poetry of French poetry into English, will it sound the same?
Yeah, but you get the idea, though.
Just the zest of the idea.
So everyone has to read Arabic to understand Islam.
To truly understand French poetry, you have to learn French poetry. You have to learn French.
Yeah, but
if you want to truly appreciate,
why didn't he write it in English? Most people speak English in the world.
That's a separate question.
I think you want to make the evidence fit the crime in a sense. There's not really any.
There are many non-Muslim Arabs, by the way.
Yeah, but Arabic's an interesting culture and language. That time it's interesting, right? It's history, it's historical, it's culturally relevant, it's part of the world now. But these things aren't. I mean, if the Quran had said, for example, that the Earth and the planets go around, it's a heliocentric solar system, that would be interesting. If it predicted the atom, for example,
it says that they're floating on their course.
Yeah, but not really.
They've been assigned a course.
It's spurious. Plato had. I mean, all the Greek.
They came up with many errors, by the way. The Quran doesn't. That's the point.
Oh my goodness!
But look, about the Arabic language.
Let me just. No, it's my turn. I was going to say.
Let's stick to the language.
For example,
let's stick to the language.
Why? I think it's Democritus, father of democracy. He came up with the idea of the atom. 800 or however many hundred years before, he didn't need Islam or Gabriel. He used his mind to come up with the idea of the atom. Anaxagoras, the Greek philosopher, he looked at the moon. Using his brain, he worked out the moon shines from...
We're not claiming... You see, we're having two conversations.
Every time I interject something, I'm not involved in the conversation.
But I'm not claiming what you're trying to...
All I'm pointing out is... let me just finish for a minute. I'm trying to say that, yes, there might be some interesting things in the Quran, but that's from the human mind.
I'm not saying that, though.
You haven't heard a single word.
See, the point that I'm trying to make to you, is this. The point that I'm trying to make to you is this.
Yeah.
Galen, Plato, Aristotle.
Great thinkers.
Great thinkers. They said many great things.
Yeah.
Some of them were right.
Yeah.
Some of them were wrong.
That's human experience.
Right, and here you have the Quran also making many claims.
Yeah, well, there's lots of things I've read in the Quran aren't correct.
All of them are right.
They're not.
Okay, like what, for example?
The Earth isn't a rug. Mountains aren't pegs.
Come on, this is silly.
I mean, the embryology in there is spurious. The fact that salt and, when you get this sort of barrier between salt water and river water, whatever, you can see that.
Physically demonstrable.
You can see that. If I got a jug of salt water, seawater and river water, and they'd mix. You just pour them in a bucket.
That's not what the Quran is saying.
Yeah, but these are miracles. I mean, look, I'm not denying that Islam has its place and it's an interesting religion and it gives you faith. But these things is like miracles. They're just not. They're just an observation of people from the 7th century.
If you say to me,
if they predicted nuclear energy or fission, I'd be impressed.
I want scientific predictions.
Look, if you say to me they're wrong.
Well, they're the best they could do at the time. They're the best they could do at the time.
I've literally just started speaking.
Yeah.
If you say to me that they're wrong, and then you misrepresent what it's saying, I think that's so unfair, really. We can't have a sensible conversation.
Okay, we can't.
First of all, the Quran is not...
Thank you.
First of all...
You can spread the word, brother.
I was hearing you.
Look, first of all, we're not claiming that the Quran is a book of science. That's the first.
Oh, that's good to hear.
I'm simply saying that it touches on subjects of a naturalistic explanation of things, for example.
It has a go, yeah.
very accurately describe
and they do
negative
not
lack of
contradict with our modern concepts and understanding of those things. So when you say that the mountains are not pegs,
not really, are they?
if you say the mountains are not pegs, the Quran qualifies what it's referring to. Do the mountains have very deep roots below them?
Some do.
Do they?
So occasionally you'll get a mountain like that, yeah.
No, mountains have roots.
All mountains.
That's a fact.
Do you know about plate tectonics?
No,
yeah?
no. Mountains have roots, that's a fact.
Mountains have some mountains have a deep, some not all, but
deep roots.
Okay, mountains are a result of plates crossing over one another.
Do mountains?
If the Quran, let me just say, okay, mountains have plates.
Khalas,
right,
okay.
Mountains have roots.
What does the Quran say? Why Allah has designed them in this way?
To hold down the earth.
So the earth will not shake with you.
Yeah, but
so the earth will not shake with you. Do the tectonic plates get stabilized by deep-rooted mountains?
No, they cause earthquakes. Shifting over one another, that's what causes earthquakes.
I think you need to study a little bit on this matter.
No,
Because
you're an apologist for Islam.
Because because mountains, geologists have said that these deep roots indeed act as pegs into the ground to stabilize the earth.
No, that's not true.
Well,
do you understand plate tectonics?
Yeah, a little bit, yes.
I mean, this is GCSE
geography
or whatever.
Yeah, I do.
So you understand the plate, and this is a latest
Are mountains
discovery.
the cause of earthquakes?
See, we've gone from morality.
Plates are, but mountains are not.
Do you know why mountains form? By plates pushing over and pushing the earth up like
or volcanic eruptions.
Volcanic eruptions are where the mantle, the crust is thin.
Yes.
And the mantle
and you have volcanic rock coming to the surface, and if that continues for a long enough time, you'll end up getting a very high mountain.
No, mountains, there is some truth in that, but mountains, the Rockies, they're all pushed up. The Himalayas are pushed up by the continent of India.
One rising above the other, pushing up.
And that's what they are. That's why you can find fossils on the top of Mount Everest.
So do deep mountains, in terms of their, as the Quran says, pegs, do they act as a stabilizing force?
No, because they're always moving. Plates are always moving.
Okay, so what I would advise you to do, because we're here every 5 or 6 weeks,
this is
rather than put you on the spot, please provide your evidence. I'll give you my phone number.
No, man.
I'll come up with my evidence and we'll compare the evidence. Because from my understanding of geology and what I've read, have you done more than a GCSE?
No, but I understand plate tectonics.
So we're both sort of GCSE level, yeah?
You're not, I wouldn't say.
I've done my. I've got three.
I think you've probably looked at an Islamic.
I've got 3 science GCSEs. 3.
Well, that's good.
Physics, and I've got 2 other science GCSEs.
I don't think you were there.
That's
the
basic.
Lectures, were you?
I'm not saying it's a degree.
I don't think you were at the lectures.
How many? So I got 3 GCSEs without lectures. So I must be a genius.
Well, whatever you do. I don't know. At the classes.
So when you talk about, for example, embryology.
Yeah.
You understand where the conversation start off from morality.
Yeah, exactly. So
because life's complex and things change. I know you don't like change. Change frightens you.
So look, anyway, my understanding of those concepts of the Quran.
You don't like change.
For me, I love change.
Yeah, well, the conversation's changed. It's okay. It's okay.
No, so
it's all right. Relax. Don't get anxious.
We're not getting anxious at all.
Things change.
We're not going to get anxious at all.
And I get anxious. In fact, I treat people like
there's one thing about
that's anxiety right there.
There's one thing about a conversation changing, and a conversation being all over the place.
It's been a reasonable conversation.
But I understand. But
not for you, mate, because you haven't managed to convert me to Islam.
Well, it's not about converting you to Islam.
This is what you do. You want to convert people to Islam. Why do you want to convert? Okay, here's a question for you.
Let him answer.
Here's a question for you. Why do you want people to convert to Islam?
Why do I want people to convert to Islam?
That's for me.
Alhamdulillah, very good question, right?
Let's talk about morality.
If I feel that there is something that would benefit you in this world and in the hereafter, would you not want me to tell you about that?
Not if you're going to threaten me with eternal hell.
I'm not threatening you with anything.